Vaughn, that was amazing.
This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. As long-time Wraith Rover supporters, we are very familiar with ropey performances. But if you need a service that's more Sam Stanton than Willie Accio, look no further than DIS. Operating across Scotland, they specialise in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repairs and more. So if you've got a problem at a height that even John Fredrickson can't reach, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more.
Boing, boing, Partick, Thistle, boing. There may be a high-profile unification bout to come on Saturday night, but it was two championship heavyweights who traded blows in a 120-minute slobber knocker on Friday night at Starks Park. Partick Thistle and Wraith Rovers went toe-to-toe in the Premiership playoff semi-final second leg, and only a knockout blow from Lewis Vaughan with the 10th penalty in a shootout could separate the sides. It proved to be one of Starks Park's great evenings, and it sets up two more huge matches against the Premiership's relegation contender. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I am Duncan Cameron, and on a glorious Saturday afternoon, I have a full house. So I'm joined today by Blair Hopcroft, first of all. How are you, Blair?
Buzzing, mate. Actually, I'm exhausted. Absolutely exhausted.
Yeah, I don't know how the players feel. I am shattered.
Oh,
Ian Murray said that. It's the first thing he said in his post-match to the BBC as well. I'm shattered.
Yeah, that was draining.
Absolutely. We've got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
Amazing. That was such a good night. I mean, I think I must have felt every sort of emotion that you can feel in 120 minutes, and I want to say I would go through it again, but that was tough.
And there's mental and physical repercussions from last night. I think might take a few days for everybody to get over that. We've also got Leslie Maybon. How are you, Les?
You see that boy that ran the length of Africa recently, that hardest geezer guy? So he said this thing at the end. He said there's different types of fun. There's type 1 fun, which is like it's fun while it's happening. That was like our broth a couple of weeks ago. He says there's type 2 fun, which is horrible at the time, but it's good fun when you look back on it. And there is type 3 fun, which is horrible at the time, and it's also horrible to look back on it. I'm not sure if last night was type 2 or type 3 fun, or maybe even type 4 fun, but I'm here and my chest pains are subsiding.
Very good. We've also got Carol Allison-Smith. How are you, Carol?
I'm grand. Barcelona, you can keep your Sagrada Familia, you can keep your Camp Nou. Take me home to Kirkcaldy.
Absolutely. And rounding us off for today, we've also got Robbie Weir. How are you, Robbie?
Aye, that was a good laugh, eh?
That's one way of putting it. Now, normally for a post-match like this, we'll go through the kind of game kind of incidents one by one. And I don't imagine it'll be a surprise to anybody that comes from me just watching Wraith TV and scribbling down notes from all the highlights. But we were so keen to get on and record this episode that highlights aren't actually up yet. So probably quite fitting, to be fair, after last night, that the structure for this episode will be a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more mad than it might normally have been, and we'll just run the place and cover whatever we need to cover. So I think loosely we'll go through the Rovers players one by one, which we've only done once before. We did it at one of the East End Park derbies, and we'll do that in more or less random order, and just give credit where it's due. But before we do that, Scott, let's just spend a little bit of time talking about Partick Thistle, because they certainly played their part in that last night and in the first leg as well, obviously. Some effort from Thistle, both their players and their fans.
Yeah, no, totally. I think definitely need to get some credit, because I think last night everybody fully was expecting at some point them to almost just blow out. The fact that they'd played 4 games in 11 days or whatever it was. But full credit to them. They went all the way to 120 minutes and they were actually in extra time the better team. I mean, and that's what worried me a little bit, the fact that they were actually creating more chances than we were. But at the end of the day, I just think that they can't be at fault. It's a terrible way to lose, I suppose. You never like to lose on penalties, and I do feel a bit sorry for them, but at the same time, it ended very quickly. It was just the fact that for us it's brilliant, and the fact that we've been on this sort of mission this season to try and get promoted, and it was almost just fitting that it was obviously Vaughan that scored the winning penalty. But no, full credit, and same with Chris Doolan. He spoke really well in interviews after it to say fair play to us, and he never moaned about anything or blamed anybody or anything. So no, I've got a lot of respect for Doolan and Thistle after such a really close game over the last 2 legs.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Said before, I think there's a lot to like about Partick Thistle. I think a lot of the ways that Thistle have done things over the last couple of years, there's a lot to be kind of admired there. And I think they're a model in certain ways. But yeah, certainly in terms of on the park, I thought tactically they were pretty spot on last night. As much as there's an element of fortune about the first one, which I suspect we'll spend a little bit of time on a couple of aspects of that. Over the piece, as you say, Scott, for a team that was obviously going to be really very tired, I thought they worked very well, and then they had a very clear game plan that was working for them. Blair, in terms of that Thistle side, anybody? I mean, obviously, we'll talk about Brian Graham's missing extensive detail,
Yes, we will.
probably several times. But saving that for just at least a minute or two. Anybody else in that Thistle side who particularly impressed you last night?
Yeah, Stuart Bannigan for me. I actually genuinely thought he was man of the match. I thought Scott Brown was brilliant throughout. He was absolutely tremendous. But if you're looking at it from a neutral point of view, I think the fact that Scott Brown wins it is probably more to do with the fact that we've won the game than the fact that he was absolutely the standout player in that game.
We did actually lose the game, to be fair.
Oh yeah, true. But you know, won the tie. But I think Bannigan was outstanding. He's obviously not got the legs anymore. Do you know what I mean? He's only 31, to be fair, but he kind of plays like he's 35 or 36, which is maybe a bit unfair. But really controlled the game, really composed in possession, really tidy with the ball, moved the ball about really well, and kind of pulled the strings. I have to say I've not been overly impressed with Doolan as a coach and as a manager over the piece. I think he does okay with what he's got, but I do kind of feel like Partick are probably better than he's getting out of them. I think is maybe a bit of. I think even Partick fans would probably say that's relatively fair. They've come so close the last few years, but I think last night he got it absolutely spot on, making the changes that he did, and he waited for us to effectively roll all of our dice in the centre of the midfield, and then he brought on 2 effectively teenagers into the midfield and brought in all that energy and all that running into the middle of the park. And at that point, in extra time, it changed the game. Like it completely swung it in their favour. They started to really press us and really get on top of us. But yeah, I thought it was. I've always got a bit of a soft spot for. Not a soft spot for Partick, that's no fair, but I've always got a bit of admiration for anybody who lives in Glasgow and supports Partick Thistle. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to support the Rovers in Kirkcaldy, let alone living in Glasgow. So fair play to them. They were there in numbers, they were there in voice, but I get it round them.
I still sent my friend's husband the poster this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning just to say good morning to him just before he goes out in his ambulance shift. It was just like,
That was beautiful. Loved it. That stupid mascot. That's actually the one thing that makes me hate Partick Thistle a little bit. That stupid Kingsley thing that they have.
Objection, Your Honour. Boing, boing. Stick that
Oh
on.
yeah, there is that. I'll give you that. That's two things.
That'll be a piece.
You're right. Stop being nice about them. Get around them.
To be fair,
A couple of minutes just to.
I thought it was a class touch by Doolan, and like he clapped our fans, and then our fans, a lot of them clapped the ones that weren't like trying to bam up Brian Graham on the pitch,
Totally.
clapping them off. I think there's a lot to respect about them. I don't think it's disingenuous to say that over like the two games they were probably shaded it, but they still got so much luck that it was like ridiculous with their goals. Like just the number of deflections or balls falling into the path of like. What was the stat that Race Stats put out? Blair Alston scored like 3 goals since December 2023, and all of them have been against us.
Four. Yeah,
Four.
four.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh.
But I said that before the first leg. Blair Alston's one of these guys who just at the point when you're going to write them off, he pops up and scores a goal. I didn't think he'd score 3.
No.
Like, come on, Blair, give me a break. But the thing I thought that Thistle had right last night in particular was just the very clear kind of knowledge that they could shell the ball long and it works and that they would get something out of it. Dylan Corr and Ewan Murray and then latterly Scott Brown, that's such a tough shift. Because Brian Graham's one thing, you know, because he's obviously knows exactly what he's doing and he's big and he's tall and he puts himself about. But even Scott Robinson, he's not a big guy. He's maybe heights with Lewis Vaughan, but his movement and his kind of game intelligence and all that kind of stuff, you're never getting free headers. And you could see that at any point when the game was kind of turning against the Rovers a little bit. All it was taken was for either one of Thistle's centre-halves or even the goalkeeper just to put the ball long, and they were getting corners and throw-ins, dangerous areas from it constantly. We were really struggling to get out.
Do we call them a hipster Greenock Morton now? Is that
Well, I think the difference is like it's a legitimate tactic in that, and I think that's where it's where the goal came from in the first leg. But once you know that Keith Watson's not going to be there, like there's no surprises. There's no. There wouldn't be any point in trying to play any other way, almost. And that's where I'd say that's where the goal in the first leg comes from, and that's where the second goal comes from as well. And it's not aimlessly shelling the ball forward. You know, they're very deliberately doing it to kind of capitalise on that. It's not necessarily a weakness, but it's an area of the park where they're winning battles. So you might as well go and try and play to it.
It's a genuine plan B, isn't it? Like
I thought
it kind of feels like we've got this team that we've built, and there's not a lot of height in it, and there's not a lot of aerial threat in our squad. So our squad's designed to play the ball on the deck. And when it comes to the point where it's no happening, you've got Jack Hamilton and maybe Zach Rudden at a push where you're kind of aiming for them. And it's a bit of a plan B, but it's never really paid dividends for us. Whereas they've built a team where the average height must be about 6 foot. Like they are a big side. And they've got some good wingers and they've got some decent fullbacks. So they are kind of designed they can play football, but they can also kind of do that shelling it in. It's like for me, they're almost like a cup side. So like the league, you know that old adage of the league table never lies? There's a reason we were 12 points or 14 or whatever it ended
14.
up being ahead of them at the end of the season. Because we were a better side, over the piece. Because you can't do that every week in the Championship and not be Greenock Morton, basically. So they had to have another plan. So they played football and they got results. But in a cup game, when it comes to it and when they're tired, that plan B is a massive, massive thing to have in your back pocket. And it changed the game. Like they did that from half-time in the first leg. They just completely stopped trying to play football, hit Brian Graham, feed off of him, and they just rolled it through the 90 minutes of the second leg.
I would say as well, to give credit to one of our former players, Dan O'Reilly. I thought the balls that he was putting forward were absolutely superb, and he was unlucky not to get on the score sheet as well. It was just Scott Brown's just absolutely miraculous block. Like, no idea how he stopped both of them. So,
yeah, that
as well. On the subject of former players, I'm going to come in very quickly. I mean, another guy I would just put a word in for is Kieran and Gwenya. I mean, I think, when Kieran and Gwenya left us, I maybe wasn't alone in thinking this guy's not going to get a full-time club. He wasn't great. He was okay when we had him, but he didn't see anything that made you think this guy's maybe got a career. But he came on in both legs and did a really good job. I mean, like, he was playing down the right for big parts last night, and he was putting dangerous balls in. And okay, I mean, there were still points where, he was struggling to control it and was going out, and you were sitting going, way. But, I think he came on and he brought a lot of pace and energy and, doing stuff that he wasn't asked to do. So he was another one that I just thought, fair play to him.
He's still signing for Cove next year, though, right?
I'd assume so.
I stumbled back into an episode of Draw, Lose or Draw here. We're talking a lot about Partick Thistle.
Well, let's focus on just one more specifically Partick Thistle moment, please, and it is the 94th minute of a 93-minute football match, and the ball it's around the edge of the area and it falls to the point of penalty spot, and you think every fibre of his being's got to just lash it, and he doesn't. He knows Brian Graham's there, and he plays it to him, and Brian Graham doesn't lash at it either. Takes a touch. He's 6-7 yards out. I mean, I don't know if you paused that there and said, right, it's all or nothing. Into your bank accounts, you can get a payday loan. They've brought Wonga back. Even money. How much is going down on Brian Graham putting this in the back of the net? I mean, you'd bankrupt half the country.
Shorting Brian Graham.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's just like there's nobody else you would rather that falls to. Like, it's the top scorer in the division, just scores those goals all the time. Except he didn't last night. And I don't know if you guys were at the game, if you've had a chance to see it back yet, but there's a perfectly synchronised head in hands, and it's every single Thistle player just has the same reaction, and it's great. It's like
Chris Lumo thing with the game against Norway when he's shagged it wide and they think it's gone in, and then they all watch the same highlight at the same time, and it's a collective, oh no! It's just brilliant.
It is. It's like there's only so many ways a person can react, and they're just all built on the same model. As they just, that's when I think, if anything, that's when you think could actually be something in this for us here, because up until that point, I was thinking, and just in the way that you get these. You start telling yourself stories about football matches that actually have no basis in reality. But it's like, oh, they are so tired and they've had to come through all these games. It's like, if it goes to penalties, they'll win on penalties because, like, we should have won it in normal time. But then they miss a chance like that. And it's like, the narrative's different. The narrative, look, if only he'd scored there, we are going to go on and win this now. But I mean, Robbie, could you believe your eyes as that ball went over the bar there?
No, but I don't really care. It's like just one of those ones where he's just wrapped his foot around it, and you see who it is. And I know Ian in our on Twitter was like, "Oh, I can't believe that." What Partick failed?
Who was that?
And then he's like, "Oh fuck, it was Brian Graham." Like this realization, like you've got the worst player at the worst possible opportunity, like totally to kill our season, and then he just shanks it over the bar. But we'll take that.
As the ball landed at his feet, I genuinely shouted the word "no," like "no!" Right? I thought it was a centre half. I did, because for the other end you can't actually see exactly who it is, and I genuinely headbutted the kid in front of me. So I'm sitting in the seat, and I'm like, no! And I threw my head forward and clashed heads with the kid in front of me. And I'm like, oh, sorry. And then I looked up, and it wasn't in the net. I was like, oh, that's all right then. Honestly, it was horrific.
No harm done.
Absolutely horrific.
So I was
sorry,
watching
the
that,
kid
and it
in
was
front of me.
really surreal. I did it in a really, really surreal way. So I was watching at home on TV, and I've got this thing that I do when the team that I don't want to win have got the ball near the net, and I just mute the TV. And I started this when England used to do well in the World Cup. And, like, you know, they had a set piece, and Kieran Trippier would be up like this, and then Harry Kane and Harry Maguire would be coming up. And I just muted it because I didn't want to hear the hysteria. And so the ball came into the box, and I'm like, I know what's happening now. So I put it on mute. And so I watched the whole thing in silence, pacing around my living room. And this whole thing unfolded. It was like watching like some kind of ballet or interpretive dance. And then it just went sailing over the bar. And still in mute, I watched Brian Graham pull the shirt up over his head. And I was like, yes, unmute. And then Michael Stewart comes in. I don't know how he's missed that. I mean, this is just my opinion, but I think that should have been in the net, and that should have been the end of the tie. And then you're like, right, now we've got a chance. Oh my goodness. That was really, really surreal, but great fun.
It was brutal.
Oh, aye. I watched that back a lot.
If you're going through the introduction where I mentioned about I went through every emotion, see when Lewis Vaughan gave that free kick away, I was like Sam Stanton was to Aidan Connolly. I went off, man. My mate that was down, he's an Air United fan.
Raging.
He was laughing at how bad I was going. I was like, Vaughan, you do not need to do this in the 94th minute because you know the ball's coming into the box. And then that happened. I about fell off the sofa at that point because I was like, what is going on?
I thought exactly the same thing. It's like, oh no, that's a very silly football to give away. Maybe forgive him for that one now, I suppose. Right, let's start talking about Raith Rovers Football Club, and I'm going to start with Ewan Murray actually, because that was another game characterised by a lot of just chucking his body in the road of stuff. Taking numerous ones to the dish at various points as well. But to talk about actually the first goal, because he plays a part in that as well. Well, actually, let's see. Carol, come to you first of all, because you'll have a better view on this than we did in the stand. A free kick for handball and a yellow card. Did you think it was do you think it was a handball, and do you think it should have been a booking?
Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. Absolute friggin' bollocks. He had his back to him. It went in his armpit. There was more flipping Lynx deodorant on that than a handball. Genuinely. Yeah. Absolute bollocks. That's my only... Yeah, and then you knew what was happening, and it was a free kick and the yellow card. And my worry was this was going to be the marker for the game, that the ref was going to get card happy. We were going to lose some key player and over a stupid decision. Let's be fair, the ref wasn't the best at making decisions, but that one was just absolute pish.
Well put.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly how I felt about it as well. Scott, what about you? You were watching that. Is he too far away? Or I'm sorry, too close for that to be a handball, regardless of where it hits him? Or how did you feel about that at the time?
I don't think it's really anything to do with the distance. I think it's just common sense. I mean, if he had pockets in his shorts, his arm was basically in his pocket. Like, it was like so close to his body. And as Carol said, he'd basically turned round as well, that it hit him almost in the back. And so you're like, I thought it was harsh, even the free kick, but then when I seen him pulling a card, I went, are you joking? Like, there's just no way that could even be a booking. And it's almost like when we seen later in the game, Bannigan basically high-fiving the ball. Like, that's just... Yeah. I just didn't get how some of the fouls that were getting given last night, and then some of them that weren't, you were going, some of them he's making these up because he's just went, oh, well... somebody's got to have fouled somebody there, or somebody's got to have given someone, but I don't know what he's seen. Again, like my mate that was watching the game going, what has he seen there to give that A as a foul and B to be a yellow card? And then when you see it's Blair Alston stepping up, I was like, well, that's probably going in.
Yeah, I've seen there's been a suggestion that the booking's for kicking the ball away, but I think he just kind of boots the ball down the field as if he's trying to clear it. I mean, whether the whistle's gone or not, I don't know. That to me almost seems more likely, in as much as I cannot see any sense in booking him for the handball. But like whatever it was, 10 minutes, 5 minutes into a game like that, you don't need to be getting out yellow cards for that. It just seems like bad refereeing. And then, I probably think this about every free kick that we concede, and then just like quickly forget about it in hindsight as soon as it goes flying over the bar. But I just did not have a good feel about that one at all. Where were you surprised at all to see that end up in the back of the net?
Not in the slightest. I Blair Alston and that knuckleball thing he does, it's frighteningly good. It is genuinely frighteningly good. The one where he smacked the bar in the 0-0 in the league game at home, it was so well struck, and there's so much technique in that. But the fact it takes a deflection, I mean, it was possibly the worst free kick routine I have ever seen a professional football team do when Brian Graham pretends he's taking that free kick. Like, it was almost like something out of Scooby-Doo as he skipped across the ball and went, "Oh, I'm maybe going to take it, Kev." But no, I mean, Alston, he hit it well enough. The frustrating thing is Kev spread himself pretty well as he could, realistically. I think it takes a nick off Brown on the end of the wall, which just moves it far enough that Kev can't get to it. I'm not sure he would have got to it, if I'm being honest, because he hits it with such pace. But yeah, awful referee. And to be fair, I mean, it's McLean in it. Like, we weren't expecting anything different. A guy that's entirely wrapped up in his own self-importance. Yet last night was entirely about him. I thought he was... the only thing, I know we're kind of jumping about a wee bit, the only thing he got right was the core booking. 100% a booking. But at that point, the Rovers fans are kind of on him because he's made the mistake before and stuff. But the core booking was 100% the right decision. I genuinely thought he was rubbish last night. I thought he was awful. Just marching about the place with his own self-importance. But nah, great free kick from Alston, and brutal way to lose a goal.
I think the most frustrating thing for me wasn't so much with the referee. It wasn't so much like the fouls that he was given or not given, kind of the way it goes. It's the... And I don't want to kind of lapse into proper sort of bitter football fan territory, but I am one. It's that, like, letting the other team referee the game.
Yes.
Kind of idea where, so you get Scott Robinson, who I think it's possibly the free kick after Cor's booking. He's wrestling somebody and he kind of drags him to the ground, and the referee...
No, that's a free kick to score. He's dancing in front of Kev. So as Kev's trying to line up his wall, he's stood right in front of him, basically moving side to side and trying to make eye contact with him and trying to distract him and stuff. And Vaughan, to his credit, comes over and is like, "Get out the road," and drags him. And then the two of them tussle and fall to the floor. But you're right, they were so streetwise. So streetwise.
So it was that. Robinson gets a long talking to. He then had just like a general foul 5 minutes after that. And then the one that really bothered me was when there was two balls on the park.
Yeah.
And the Rovers had one and he was standing holding the other one.
Yeah.
It's like, Scott, how do you think this situation gets resolved, son? Chuck the ball at the park. And he's standing and he's looking at the referee, and the referee's looking at him, and then he drops the ball. Like, book him and move on.
Yeah, totally.
My blood pressure's getting up again. Like, it's that stuff that bothers me. Because as I say, like, the fouls and stuff's kind of fine. Like, that's part of the nature of the game. That there will be free kicks, there will be handballs, and the referee's got to make decisions. But the stuff where it's like Brian Graham getting to dictate to the referee where they're taking throw-ins from and all this, like, Brian Graham gets away with so much, man.
It amazes me that Brian Graham doesn't get booked for dissent in every single game that he plays, because he just berates them. It's actually merciless.
Mouth on him, hasn't he?
He really does.
Yeah, absolutely does. See if that was a guy. See if you signed a guy from down south, a boy that none of these referees had ever come across before, You
Yeah,
sign the
100%.
guy, he's 35, comes up for Rochdale and starts running his mouth at a referee. He'd be booked faster than you could blink.
Yep. It's
And I
good
think
old Brian
even-
Graham, though, isn't it?
Aye, and listen, I'm getting right into kind of borderline conspiracy stuff now. I also
Yeah.
think Brian Graham gets away with more offsides than other players because of how good he is. I think you get linesmen who are like, I bet he's timed that well.
The assistants
when they're
were a
not
bit
sure.
rubbish last night as well. They were not supporting the ref. There was a few decisions where the assistant should have stepped in and said that's wrong because he
The
had
one on the
clear
railway
view.
stand looked homeless. I don't know what was going on with him. His shirt was about 5 sizes too, but he genuinely looked like the boys that turn up for like refereeing school games that have found the shirt that they wore 20 years ago when they were 15 stone heavier. Like he was a shambles.
See to take this in a wee bit of a more positive direction. Blair, you mentioned earlier on Dylan Corr getting booked. I thought he was absolutely superb last night. Just to go on to that, he's been so good since he came back in the team, and to come in after dislocating your shoulder and to be playing as much as he's doing and to do as well as he's doing, he looks like he's getting there in terms of forming a partnership. Obviously, had to come off last night and put Scott Brown to centre back, but I just thought that the whole defence as a whole, like Partick, we obviously struggled to get to grips with them, but at the same time we did so well to like marshal them. So I think that we've got to give a lot of credit to like the way that we actually did defend and get ourselves over the line, because as a unit, like Liam Dick did superb for the assist as well, and Ross Matthews is playing out of position. So I think we've got to give Rovers quite a fair bit of credit actually on that front. For all Partick were good. They're one of the best attacking sides in that league, but we've done really well to do what we've done and get the result. So, aye.
Played the last 40 minutes of that game with 2 midfielders in defence.
Yeah.
Not another team in the division can do that. Just that Inn would be able to actually still... Granted, it's probably because we've had a lot of practice at it so far this season. But if you've got Greenock Morton or Ayr United, and it's like, right, listen, you've got to get through extra time, but you're going to have to play 2 midfielders in your back line. They are going to play backs to the wall, 10 men behind the ball, barely get out, just like last-ditch football. Whereas we're still playing the same game we always play. We just happen to have two midfielders in there. And, huge amount of credit for that, absolutely. And just on Dylan Corr, I think I agree with you. I think he needs a lot of credit for that because of the lack of football he's had, quite simply the lack of experience that he's had up till this point. And as you say, that dislocated shoulder is not a small thing. It's not an easy thing to come back from either. I thought he was given a bit of a torrid time in the first half. Again, to go back to what we said before, you've got Graham and Robinson in particular just know what they're doing up against very experienced defenders. For the second goal, it's running off Ewan Murray. It's not running off Dylan Corr that it comes from in the first place. And you can see that sometimes where a couple of balls that Robinson won over Corr, and he's given away 4 or 5 inches in height. But it's the experience and all that stuff. And that'll absolutely come with Dylan Corr. I thought for the situation he was kind of thrown into, he did brilliantly well. That'll probably cover us through Dylan Corr and Ewan Murray. Les, why don't you give us a bit on Liam Dick and in particular the role he plays in the equaliser?
I thought, Liam Dick was excellent last night. And earlier in the season, I was very critical of Liam Dick's perceived lack of capability getting forward. He more than made up for that last night with a fantastic ball right into the box, perfectly on to Ross Matthews' head. So I think Dick, at left back, you're always going to get a really solid performance from Liam Dick. You're always going to get defensively a very good performance. And, going into next season, I hope we do extend the Dick again, even if nothing else, just to have another person who can play in defence. So I thought he was, defensively.
Blue Strap's turned down a deal from Morton, so if Dick's injured, strap on.
But I think, next season, I think rather than extending, I think we need more girth. I want to see him in the midfield. I want to see him in the centre of defence rather than at the side. Going forward, though, I think he's got better at it. I'm getting cancelled for this now.
At least he's
One
not
of those
the lineup is my
explicit
Dick
language
Lang.
warnings.
We'll have to bleep this bit out. So going forward, he has got better. I think he's got better. He's got more confident going forward. It does, I think, maybe help a little bit that for a while we had James Brown, who's doing something very similar down the right, and he's got better and better at it, and his balls and I have to say, I think his throw-ins have got better too. Like I said this in the chat, it's like Lewis Strapp, but without being a weapons-grade bell end, and without the whole shit of toddling over, getting the towel, drying the ball. Liam Dick just goes over and launches a really good ball in. But no, it was a fabulous cross. Great goal. And Ross Matthews actually changing his hairstyle probably for the first time since he was born maybe made the difference between the ball going sailing over his head with that 4 all over and him actually getting a beautiful downward header and powering it into the net. So on the whole, I was very, very pleased with Liam Dick. It's just, I think emphasises just how much he's developed with us this season.
It's a very Partick Thistle-esque goal. One fullback providing for the other. I haven't looked this up, but I suspect that's probably the first time that's happened for us this season. But very, very good to see. Scott, talk to me about Ross Matthews, please, and just anything you want to see.
Yeah, as Leslie says, I think it was because of the camera that we were watching on from Rave TV and BBC and everything, it's just a perfect clip. It's not even just, it's the perfect height that the defence just can't quite get up to it. And it's just perfectly clipped to that back post. And yeah, it was just also great from Ross Matthews to even notice that that's what Dick was possibly going to do. And he just ends up running in, and Partick haven't even noticed him at all. He ran in, really good header. And as soon as Mitchell has planted himself to get ready to save it, he's fallen to his knee, and as soon as that, I was like, that's clearly going in. And then obviously it's bedlam, and it was brilliant. And it was great to see obviously the gif of the beans being poured on his head again, and it was just, that's bizarre if you ask me, but fair enough. It was Ross Matthews.
I think it's actually a tin of soup, which makes it weirder.
Listen, it looked like beans or something to me, but I
think it's a tin of soup. Aye,
is it
strange boy?
But, no,
and a chunky veg.
Oh, that's a washing machine's nightmare. That is.
There's worse.
I don't think we can talk.
Yeah, a brand new jersey when he did it as well.
Yeah. Oh, poor. Oh.
Simon Pollock just in there why? Just why?
See if we do go up, right, that jersey with the dried beans and soup stains on it is going to be worth millions. I bet John's already got it. John's probably got it in his vault already. The Ross Matthews stained Ross Matthews shirt.
He's got previous as well. Remember he did the one where he pulled his shorts up. It went kind of viral as well.
Aye.
Back when these things were still quite new.
Yeah, totally.
Did he take the soup with him to the gift recording, or did he just find it randomly in Stars Park? It's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take soup with me.
Morrison's is just down the street, so
they're always, to be fair, they're always encouraged to think outside the box and try and do something a bit different. And Ross is one of the ones that always kind of does it. Do you know what I mean? There's a few that kind of join in and go for it, and there's a few that just can't. That's really no their thing. You just get the punch of the air or whatever. But I love to say,
actually, after the away leg when Scott Brown scored, because after at Dundee United game when he scored the last minute winner, I don't think anyone had a clue what was going on. That was the first time I've seen his goal gif with the Canaries flag. It's just I'd never seen it before because I never went back and looked because I was too busy jumping about on my mate's shoulders.
Yeah, I think the Canaries flag, which I think is upside down, which would suggest that he's in distress. But
that or he's stolen it off someone from the Canary Isles.
Possibly,
maritime law.
Yeah, Las Palmas is his, and he's keeping it.
Yeah, he's got a drum somewhere from them as well. Right, let's move along a little bit. We'll take the next. We'll take a chunk of Rovers players next, and just see what we want to add. So let's take basically the kind of wide players that featured across. So I'm thinking. We'll come back to Kyle Turner, but let's Aidan Connolly, Dylan Easton, Josh Mullen, Callum Smith. Carol, anything you want to say on any of those guys from last night, please?
I don't want to be negative, but we weren't very wide last night. We seemed to be very focused in the midfield, just like in a pool. It was good to see Mullen get on for 20 minutes, but I do think that was just get on, do 20 minutes and see what you can do. But yeah, I don't think we were very wide last night, so it wasn't their best. But I mean, when Easton come on, I was like, please let him do something. Please let him do something. It was good, but not. I don't think it was their game last night.
Yeah, I think safe to say, Robbie, do you think Dylan Easton and Josh Mullen still a little bit short of full fitness on that basis?
Yeah, definitely. It was quite clear when they came on that they were getting to grips with the game because they've not played in a little while. I think Easton did reasonably well, and Mullen did his bit. I get that it's going to be difficult for them, but they did their jobs. So I know it wasn't 100% of what they probably hoped, but still played a part and got us over the line, got us to the shootout, and Easton obviously taking one of the kicks to help us. So yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I thought that was the best spells that we had in the game was when we were kind of moving Thistle around. They did not want to not have the ball, I suppose. And that, Ian Murray mentioned it in his post-match, that like very clearly, and as you say, Blair, with Stuart Bannigan in particular, they are almost there, like, you know, aim number one was like not to let our midfield have the ball.
Yeah.
And you could see that where, as you say, Carol, like Aidan Connolly spent quite a lot of time coming inside, and Kyle Turner was doing the same. But that was, I thought, was when we did best, was actually these guys and just trying to move Thistle around. But compared to the first leg, they were so much more switched on. And I think the fact that the guys that were bringing in hadn't played as much football as the others did certainly kind of do well to disrupt that.
I was going to say, I think that's where sorry, just really quick, I think that's where the frustration for me came in a little bit last night, in that the 3 goals we scored across those 2 legs were all really similar. Keep the ball, play really good football, spray it about, like you say, move them around, and then a decent cross into the box, and it's come good 3 times, and we just stopped doing it. Like it was, and I don't know whether that's they stopped us doing it or whether the nerves kicked in or what it was, but we stopped doing what we were doing really well. We did it in the first leg, the last 20, 25 minutes, half an hour at the second half. In that first leg, we stopped doing it. And then I never really thought other than the goal, I never really thought we got a spell where we were doing that again last night, which was frustrating. But I thought Easton was actually really good when he came on. If that's him kind of not fully fit, it would be nice to see him kind of get another run at the next opponents, whoever they happen to be, on Thursday and so on. Because I thought he had the tail up rather than between his legs, I suppose. But no, I thought he was good.
The bit between his teeth.
Bit between his teeth, that'll do.
But I thought he was taking up good positions, but it was just almost like just didn't quite. I think when he's fully fit and firing, I think he runs that right back more than he did.
Yeah.
And just takes him to the line, which is what Jack McMillan did not want to be doing at all. I think the most kind of visibly tired of those Thistle players. I think he actually did very well over the piece. But definitely just a case of another week's rest. Dylan Easton back to his best is such a weapon to have for games like this, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. So then I was going to come back to Kyle Turner. I just wanted to single him out because I thought he was brilliant again last night. There were a couple of points where he was maybe a little bit guilty of overplaying and there was people giving a wee mump and a moan, but I don't think you get all the other good stuff that he does without him trying to quote-unquote overplay a little bit. I thought he was brilliant. I just think that was a continuation of what we've seen from him the last couple of games.
He's similar to Easton on that front, that he's the type of player that you've just got to accept that. I'm actually buzzing for him. Like, there were so many people that said, why did we bring him in when we've got that many number 10s, or what's the point in this? And he was getting a bit of stick. That's exactly why we brought him in, and I've said that all along. I was like, he's going to do a turn for us at some point. And last night was just a perfect example of like the type of performances that he can put in and what he brings to the table. And I think that's probably true across the whole squad. I think that it's quite easy to sort of look at players and be quite dismissive of them, but maybe sometimes we've got like systems that just aren't working the best. Like we used Turner up at Tannadice as a 6. It's never going to be his best position. So it's just about finding out how we can fit them in and where they fit them in. But I absolutely delighted for him. I'm actually going to shoot off, guys. So I will leave you here to carry things on. But just to say that I was just trying to figure out fag paper maths of like how many games I've been to at Starks, and certainly in the hundreds, that's the top one. The atmosphere at the end was absolutely incredible. One of the best just evenings that you could have, just watching the football with your mates. Just two good teams going hammer and tongs, and to round it off with that penalty shootout, absolutely unreal. So I'll leave you to it and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Good man, thank you. Scott, just one thing final thing on kind of Kyle Turner. Robbie making the point there about kind of tried him as a 6, and I think safely say that didn't really work. I wouldn't have necessarily pegged him as being basically a left winger either, but I think he's been a revelation out there these last few games. How much of a blow do you think it would be if it is Ross County that we go to play and we have to revert to not having Kyle Turner effectively?
Well, going by how he's finished the season, the last couple of league games, and then obviously the 2 playoff games there against Thistle, you would actually go to say that it's going to be quite a big blow. Because, I mean, the guy is literally... The thing I've really liked about Kyle Turner, and it was exactly the reason that I thought, that I know that he's a really good player, especially at the championship level, is that he's actually so intelligent off the ball that compared to his peers, he seems to just find a gap, run into it, and nobody seems to pick him up, ever. Like, he always seems to be in a space where you're going, how's he got so much time on the ball when... Like, for instance, I don't know if you remember in the first half, there was so many times after we scored that it was just like a rammy at the edge of the Thistle box, and yet he just seemed to come out with the ball and just have so much time. You're going, where's he came out with this? And yet he's on the right, he's on the left, he's in the middle, he's everywhere. But yet I think Murray's just went, look, officially you're down on the left, but just go and do, if you can see a space, go into it. We're not locking you into play on that left side. So I think it's also been good for him as well in terms of he's been given that sort of free role to just go and do where he thinks he can cause bother. And yeah, I mean, it's a player that we thought we were getting to begin with, and it was a worry that when Stanton came back that he actually kind of went into his shell a bit and didn't get a lot of minutes, but he also didn't play too great to deserve the minutes that he was probably wanting. And so when he came back after obviously having to play out of position at Tannadice, he's been brilliant, and especially that Arbroath game, he really showed us again. No, I'm showing you now what sort of player I am, and he was just creating everything. So fair play to him, and yeah, I pray. Well, there's for more than one reason that I'm hoping it's St Johnstone, but that is one reason that Turner would be more effective than James Brown. Put it that way, and. Nothing against James Brown. I just think that Kyle Turner can unlock a defence that James Brown can't get past the halfway line. So
I think you're absolutely spot on. Kyle Turner, he's always able to receive a pass. He's always available to receive a pass. And I think obviously the other side of that coin in that midfield, Sean Byrne, I think, is always able to find a pass. He just does not seem to waste the ball. Blair, how important is Sean Byrne on a night like last night?
I thought he was massive last night. He Defensively, he was very good. With the ball, he was very good. I spoke about it midweek after the first leg, but I really like that combination of, I don't know, we'll get to the other two, but the Byrne with Brown in front of him and Stanton in front of him. It's like it brings the best out of all three of them. And it is that sometimes, sometimes the sum is better than the parts kind of thing. And sometimes the sum isn't quite as good as the parts when you put bits together. I think that combination massively brings the best out of Sean Byrne. There was one point last night he tracked back and put in a tackle on, I think it was maybe Fitzpatrick. A fantastic bit of defending. He shithouses, he niggles folk, he's probably the most streetwise we've got. He's the one that nips at the referee. Actually, Turner does it as well, to be fair, but nips at the referee and controls the game a little bit. It is that like a conductor almost. He's just pulling the strings. He won't stand out in a game. If you're watching it on the telly, I wouldn't have thought. He's not the kind of player that you watch and go, my God, he was fantastic. But everything he offers that team, he really dipped in form, didn't he? Like kind of Christmas time onwards. And he kind of fell away a little bit and has really come back at the right time. I was really impressed with him last night.
He had a sort of imperial phase earlier in the season, around about the time we went to Hamilton.
Yeah.
Where that, like, he was untouchable in that game. He was just, and he was giving it all the spins and the turns and everything, and they just resorted to just booting him over. And he was unbelievable.
Which he likes.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
Likes that.
Just feeds off that entirely. And then, as you say, he kind of quieting down, and he had an injury at that point as well, and he dropped out of the team a little bit. But again, last couple of games, he's just come back up, and he's doing that unsung, water carrier sounds so dismissive and so below what I mean, but like that.
But it's important.
Yeah, just doing everything that you need him to do, that then lets other people worry about their job. And you're right, that midfield is so well balanced between Stanton, Brown and Byrne. It's just that it's a perfect kind of covering of everything you would need or want out of a three-man midfield.
Yeah. And the fact that they play one in front of the other, like you look across kind of football, there's always a two in there somewhere. It's 4-2 with one in front, or it's 1 with 2 in front, or whatever. It is literally 1-1-1. Do you know what I mean? And it is just freeing them up to do. I thought that was kind of the tale of last night. And I'm thinking about it more as we go through the team. Our whole team last night was full of boys who did what they do. So like Liam Dick gave you what Liam Dick gives you. Ross Matthews gave you what Ross Matthews gave you. Sean Byrne, Kyle Turner, Scott Brown. It's just full of boys who, like Liam Dick's not an attacking fullback, but he did what Liam Dick does, and he did it really well. And that's the kind of, it spread through the team. Everybody just did their jobs. Yeah,
that's a great point. I think, how often have we said about various people over the course of the season, like, by his own standards, he's not quite done what he would want to do. I think everybody kind of played their own game and did it very well. And as I say, quite literally, we got beat last night, but obviously, in the wider context, it wasn't really that, and it never felt like we weren't performing or it wasn't going at all. I mean, let's just take a couple of minutes then. So Sean Byrne, ticked off. So let's go one up. In fact, no, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to Scott Brown. Let's go to Sam Stanton. Carol, give me your thoughts on Sam Stanton, please.
Stanton, isn't it? It's Sam Stanton. He's just there when you need him. And if he's not there, you notice. Yeah. Silent but violent, I think, is the best way to describe him.
I think there must be better ways, but I can't think of any.
No. Not in a nasty way, but just if he's not... terrible. If he's not there, we notice. And last night he was just there. There wasn't anything spectacular, wasn't anything fantastic. It was just standard Sam Stanton, which is just that little bit more than the rest, and that's what you need. like Blair says, everybody did what we wanted them to do last night. And that's all you can hope for. And yeah.
Leslie, give me your thoughts on that midfield. So Sean Burns, Sam Stanton, and I tell you, you can have Scott Brown as well.
I have to say, I think the last 20 minutes of the game and extra time just reinforce what I say almost every time I'm on here and after every game on social media, which is that next season, Scott Brown has to be in the midfield at all costs. And we have to do everything we can next season to stop Scott Brown playing in defence. Even if it means we're signing some complete no-mark, like championship jobber of a defender, like an Aaron Muirhead or a Boy Watson from Airdrie, or just like somebody, or the guy McGinty from Ayr, just some big goon staggering about. Anybody, just get anybody who is a defender, so that Scott Brown isn't going to have to go in there, because he just brings so much to the midfield. And again, I've said it before, it's not that he's a bad defender. I don't think Ryan Nolan or Tom Lang or even any Dan O'Reilly, somebody like that, is any significantly better than Scott Brown in defence. He's a perfectly solid defender, but we lose so much when he's out the midfield. That's similarly with Sean Byrne as well. So, both of them, clearly there was a reason Scott Brown had to go into defence. Dylan Corr was on a booking and also banjoed. And then Sean Byrne, that was like a tactical substitution, and we know Stanton can play a bit deeper, but we just definitely lost something when Brown went into defence and when Byrne went off. And it was one of those things, we had good quality attacking players on, but the game seemed to be happening behind them and over their heads and things like that. So again, it was just another illustration for me of why Scott Brown has to be in our midfield at all costs. But oh my goodness, what an brilliant game he had last night. Somebody put in our group chat just the still of him laughing in Brian Graham's face after he cleared that shot off the line. It's just brilliant. He's just absolutely up in his face laughing at him. And I don't know whether he's laughing at him out of adrenaline or whether he's trying to get into his head, but absolutely right that he was named the man of the match on the BBC, and with good reason.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the little interview he does with the BBC afterwards, I would highly recommend it. It's very good. And he just seems genuinely quite surprised that they've given him man of the match. And then as they start asking him about it, he's more and more convinced. He's like, I did actually play quite well. Fair enough, I will accept this. He's practicing penalties for 2 weeks and hadn't missed any. Were you taking a week's wages off him for that?
Not in the slightest, because you know what? It was actually one of the better penalties. I don't think our penalties were particularly good. He gets it down into the corner. It's a good save. It's one of those that, he's asked the question of the keeper and the keeper stood up to it. I don't think it was a poor penalty by any stretch of the imagination. I cannot say enough good things about Scott Brown as a captain. Actually, I must admit, the more I watch him in interviews and stuff, as a person and as a player, he is. I think it's rare, but every so often, when you're a football fan, you get a player that genuinely personifies what you want in a footballer in your team. And Scott Brown, for me, is that 100%. He's everything I want in a footballer. And I know it's different for everybody. Some want your Lewis Vaughns or your Dylan Eastons with the silky touches and the goals and all the rest of it. I want somebody who's going to go out there and run through a brick wall at every opportunity, that is going to blood, sweat and tears, that's pulling up with cramp and is not in the slightest bit interested in going off. He is a genuinely, for me, a total model professional. I just think he's so important to what we do, and I agree completely with Les. Not so much about the big jobbers at the back, but I'm hoping we get somebody decent, but we definitely need to keep him in the midfield. I think he's so important.
Yeah, definitely. And just a final point, Scott, on Scott Brown, because I don't want to gloss over it. The kind of double block that he makes, the goal line clearances, how unbelievable did that look watching that in the telly? Because I couldn't believe that for the stamp.
It was brilliant. I mean, the first one, obviously, it almost looks like the corner just about goes in and he clears it off the line. And then as he's literally, I don't even think he's fully up on his feet yet, and the ball's been fired straight back at him, and it's absolutely going in the bottom corner. and he's managed to just kind of almost like put his feet together and like hop it to the side as well as falling over. And I mean, no, the guy, as Blair's just said there, like I've said it all season. I said it as soon as he kind of started showing it last season that Scott Brown is just what you want, and it's hardly surprising that Ian Murray went to him as the captain very early on as well. Like he just seems like a genuine good guy on top of being a very good footballer and underrated at times as well in terms of his actual technical ability. Like he picks out some really nice passes. He puts his foot on the ball. He calms situations down, like what Sean Byrne does as well. He puts out fires when needed, and then he just loves a challenge. I mean, that challenge at Firhill on Tuesday was superb. That he went into and just won the ball. I mean, it
Beautiful.
was just, it was Ross Matthews-esque, and the two of them, if they're in midfield together, I think it puts the fear into a few midfielders. But I think Scott Brown just. Yeah, he's been brilliant this season, and he was probably hard done by not to win like any Player of the Season awards. I think this year, probably because he's been playing defence, as Les said. Like he's been playing in positions that he shouldn't really be playing in, but he's done it for the better of the team, and because he's the captain and he's setting an example. And if that's your captain, you're going to look up to him and fight for him because he's been brilliant all season.
100%. It's funny the way that works, where it's like, oh, he's been playing out of position. Like, if anything, you should be getting more credit for that. Like, that's more impressive than just playing well in your own position. But if I'm listening, I didn't vote for him in the awards that was up for it. But I feel bad for that, and I feel like I probably should have done because he certainly has been. He's been excellent, and I think it speaks volumes that. I wasn't really, in terms of him as a defender, I almost didn't second guess at all the fact that it's like, oh, Dylan Corr's going to have to come off. Like, right, okay, Scott Brown will go back there. Or you have to almost separate the fact from losing him in the midfield because that's huge. But yeah, him going into the defence, now it's like, it's fine. He'll do a job there, absolutely. And he'll do it well. And even, as I say, the fact that he's alongside... Ross Matthews is not a defender either. Huge amount of credit for those guys. If you're keeping track, we've got 3 players left to discuss. So first of all, just a relatively brief word on Jack Hamilton, who obviously came off the bench in that game with a very specific task. I think it's fair to say. Blair, you happy with, impressed by Jack Hamilton's efforts last night?
Efforts, yeah. Outcome, it was okay. Like I actually really feel for Jack. Like I think there's a real player in there. I think he's one of these players that needs games more regularly. For me, last night he looked like a player that hadn't played a lot of football recently. And whether that's through injury or tactical, I genuinely don't know. But I thought he was a wee bit kind of, I don't know, like he wasn't quite as airily good as what he has been in the past. He didn't win quite as many headers as I would have liked him to. The ones he did win invariably were kind of the ones where there were kind of half chances or whatever. There was one or two where you think had he won them, we would have maybe got some joy out of it. But I kind of feel for him. There's a player in there, and I do think under Ian Murray, if he can keep fit, I think he'll thrive, and I think he will come good. I just hope that he's fit enough to get a bit more time, maybe in the final. Would be good, because I do think he offers us quite a lot in terms of his physicality and stuff.
Yeah, I actually thought he did really well for the job that I think he had to do, which was that in terms of like competing for those headers. So he's not necessarily winning them.
No.
And as you say, when he's winning them, he's not necessarily, getting up and finding a man. But what it meant was that when the ball was going up, suddenly, really for the first time, competing for the second ball was like a genuine issue or a genuine factor that Thistle had to worry about. In the way that they were doing it to us all game, you suddenly had, Vaughan and Callum Smith and these guys were then getting Stanton as well. they were getting their first touch of the ball in Thistle's half. And we didn't necessarily go on to create a huge amount with it, but I thought that was a huge factor. I actually can't remember Jack Hamilton touching the ball with his feet, which
he had a couple of
shot.
chances. There was one shot that I think he would want back. It opened up for him.
Yeah, I think he takes it with his left, doesn't he?
Yeah, he could have slid in Vaughan, and he decided not to, which I actually think was the right option because Vaughan was getting closed down, and it was one of them where it opened up in front of him, and you think, he'd want that back.
Yeah, but I don't mean that as a criticism of him. I mean, it's not it's not his job to go and get the ball to his own feet. You need to be finding him and getting him into those positions. But I thought he did very, very well for what we needed him to do last night. Very much in the same mould as we've been saying, with guys doing their jobs and doing them well. Right, two big names left to cover then. Let's start with the goalie. Carol, talk to me about Kevin Dabrowski, please.
I think I'm going to talk about his mental performance last night rather than his playing performance. I think he was key to getting the players up and ready. And you could see on the BBC and on Race TV that he was key to motivating them for the penalties. And I think last night that he took it up a notch. He was ready for this mentally. He was supporting from the back. Yeah, I think he had an outstanding game, and I think he's going to develop to be a very good goalkeeper. He's loving his football at the moment. He's loving his time at Raith Rovers. And I think that's key. He's in him, Lewis Vaughan, Matthews, Dick, Brown. They are so grateful and so thankful that they can enjoy their time at Raith at the moment as they're given everything. And last night, I think Dabrowski just took it to the next level. Maybe not in his performance as a goalkeeper, but as a mentally, as just being there for the guys and just that huddle before the penalty kicks. I think he was key.
Leslie, I think we maybe wondered if we might get some mental performances from Big Kev over the course of this season, but I think these last two games he's really has kind of put it all together. I think. How have you felt about Big Kev the last couple of games?
Oh, he's been fantastic, and the save from Harry Milne right at the end to tip it round the post was fantastic. And he also had one a bit before that when he put a shot over the bar. And Michael Stewart was really negative about it. Oh, he should have caught that. I think he could have caught that there. No, I don't think he did. It was and he made a very good reflex save. He's a fantastic shot stopper, as we know. I think his kicking is slowly getting better. He's not a no-footed goalie anymore. He's a half-footed goalie. There are still moments when you're sort of looking and you're thinking, but no, it's coming there. And I mean, like Carol said as well, just psychologically as much as anything else. We saw Wasidi Williams in with the Partick fans at Firhill with a megaphone in the quarter-final. And full well if Big Kev was injured, Big Kev would be in the south stand in the singing section with the megaphone leading the singing section. But just that great image from last night, everybody's huddled round and Big Kev's towering over everybody doing the team talk for the shootout. I never want to get into kind of goalies' performances in penalties because I do think there is an element of if the goalie doesn't save it, they get told they've gone the wrong way or whatever. I don't think there's a great deal he could have done better in the shootout. Over the game as a whole, I thought he was pretty good. A couple of big saves as always, and just I think like I've said before as well, the fact that if he concedes a goal, if he makes a mistake, he's got this ability to just bracket it off and put it away, and not let it get to him for the rest of the game or the rest of the season. I think that's a real plus as well. So very, very impressed with him over the last few games.
Yep, 100%. Scott, anything you want to add on Kevin Dabrowski?
I mean, I think nobody can really ever say that his shot stopping's ever an issue. Like, the guy this season has pulled off, if you were reeling, I don't know, top 10 saves of the season, I think he's probably got 7 of them in the Championship. Like, it's been ridiculous, some of that. His reactions are really good, and he always gets a firm hand to whatever it is that he's diving to in a corner or into the sort of high into the net or whatever. And I mean, he gets criticised from time to time because he's had a few blunders, if you want to say, this season, and his kicking's no amazing, and he's hand. One thing I will say actually in these playoffs games, he's actually came and caught a few balls which I think early in the season he would not have
I
caught,
think he's
and he's
excellent.
actually taken. That's the pressure he's taken off the defence. Ticking, I'm still a bit.
Big time.
I'm not sure he's. There's a few where he's like sclaffed and it's bounced through players in the midfield, and you're going, right, well, we got lucky with that one, but yeah, I mean, it's something that hopefully he can keep working on and get better at, but at the same time, he's saved us a lot of points during the season, and, won us points, but like, yeah, the guy, and just as a guy as well, we obviously got to speak to him over the festive period when he came into the Macmillan Lounge, and he's just such a nice guy. Like, he wants the best for himself, his teammates, and just the club in general, and he's just happy to chat to whoever that's wearing a Rover top. Like, he'll just speak to you whenever about whatever, and he's just happy to be there, and he's loving his football, as we've said. So, no, I mean, I'm just as happy for him as I am for the rest of the guys.
Loves a smoke bomb as well, doesn't he? The two on the pitch last night, and the security boys go, "No, don't touch it." And Kev's like, "Shut up," picks it up and takes it off the pitch. I thought last night was his most commanding performance, actually, in a Rover shirt. Dealing with crosses, dealing with the physicality in the box, dealing with all that came at him. I thought was he's and I know he's had better saves in other games and stuff, but as a 90 or 120 minutes collective, I think that was his best performance in a Rover shirt last night. I love him with every bit of me. I absolutely love him, and I can't quite figure out what it is about him. But
is it his hair?
He is no. I'm just meaning he's so good, right? And we've been really lucky as Rovers fans. I've mentioned this before. We've always had good goalkeepers, but he makes me so nervous, and I don't know why I can't get past it. But every game I watch him, everything that happens, he just makes me feel really nervous all the time. Yeah, I know in my heart of hearts he is absolutely brilliant. But see, when a back pass comes to him and it's on target and he's walking backwards and trying to shuffle his feet to get himself organised, it still gives me the absolute fear every time. But I wouldn't change him for the world. I love him so much. He's so good.
I'm the same. Just like so happy we've got him. Because you need these guys around. You do. Just like setting aside ability, even kind of guy who makes going to football more enjoyable. Yeah. And 100%, I'm just absolutely delighted that he's our goalkeeper, as opposed to being somebody else's. But we've got one name left on the list. I think. I hope I've not forgotten anybody. And Blair, I'm going to come back to you, so you can talk to me about the penalty specifically, if you like, but more generally than that, talk to me about Lewis Vaughan, please.
Oh man, we've done this so many times now, haven't we? He's he's one of our own and all that kind of stuff, but he just is. His interview before the game, and like you hear him talking, and players say things, and they always do, and I love it here, and I've enjoyed my time at the club, and I'd really like to see the club do well and stuff. But like Vonnie feels it. Do you know what I mean? When he talks about, he actually, I thought was really telling in the pre-match when he talked about, as a player, I want to play at the highest level. And there's bound to be a bit of him that's thinking, I probably should have moved on at some point. I probably should have got a move. I should have got into the Premier League at some point. But when he says, like, it would mean the world to me to be playing in the Premier League with Raith Rovers, it's like, man, it just gets you right in the feels. He was great last night. Again, 120 minutes and he never stopped running. He never stopped moving. I thought he was just, again, we've mentioned it already, he gave you what Lewis Vaughan gives you. I thought he was brilliant. Very, very assured performance. The penalty was, it was one of their keeper did pretty well in the penalties. He got pretty close to everything. And I think the one thing that saves Vaughan is the fact that he decides to go with a bit of power, which he quite often does, actually, to be fair. He likes to leather a ball. And it's one of those that even if the keeper gets a hand to it, you're going to have to be Big Kev to be keeping that out, because it's got a bit of pace on the ball. But like, it's that fairy tale thing in it. If you could have written this season in a book, you know what I mean? We're not going to make the playoffs. We're not going to make the league, rather. We're not going to win it. We're going to get close, but we're not going to get there. We're going to get to the playoffs, and the man that's going to do it is Lewis Vaughan. Like, you couldn't make that up. Yeah, I think I just love him. He's so good. I'm actually sitting looking at a picture of him in front of me right now. He's handsome.
Said in his this BBC interview, he said that obviously took those 2 penalties against Arbroath, and he put them to that side.
Yeah.
And he says, I know David Mitchell's going to have seen that, so I thought I'll just smash it down the middle. And then they show him the replay, and he's like, "Oh, I really hooked that to that side." Like, in his own mind, he's put it straight down the middle. He's like, "Oh yeah, I took a big chance there." But yeah, listen, it's one of these things with football. Kev goes the right way once, and it's one of the ones, I think it's McMillan's that he puts past the post. Whereas David Mitchell, I think, goes the right way for 4 of them and gets a hand to 2 or 3.
Yep.
But
very close to Easton's as well, to be fair. Very, very close to Easton's.
But doesn't matter. It's just, so we talked about that huge miss from Brian Graham at the end of the game. We said, like, that there's nobody else you would want that to fall to. And it's almost a case of, like, if you gave that to Thistle again, they would still want it to be Brian Graham. And it's kind of how I felt about that penalty, where as Vonnie's walking up to it, just thinking, like, this is right. This is who this should be. This is who I want this to be. And if he'd missed and we'd been in the same situation this time next year, I would want it to be him again. Like, it's just, he's the man, he's the guy. And I mean, even specifically just in that way, you see when the boy Diak, who misses, you can see when he's watching up, his body language is just. And listen, there's rights and wrongs about should a teenager be your 5th penalty taker and all this stuff, and I think there's you can argue that a couple of different ways. But with Vaughan, he's just like steely-eyed, straight down, knows what he's doing. Like, I think probably woke up yesterday morning and thought, if I'm taking a penalty, I'm going to put it down the middle. Now, he then obviously failed to do that, but that's by the by. He thought he knew what he was going to do.
Thought he knew what he was doing, aye.
Yeah, and it's just like no doubt about it at all. Just one quick point again. Sorry, on that penalty shootout. So, because of the way the South Stand obviously was kind of rejigged for the singing section, we're like immediately behind it. We're effectively in the first row after it. So there was other folk in the row that wouldn't normally be there. I think they moved back. And there was a wee boy in the seat next to me who's kind of not normally there. And as the penalties were going, like, obviously, like everybody else, everybody's up to high-do, everybody's all panicking and everything. And as Jack McMillan was walking up, this wee boy, he just kind of did a wee kind of jump, but he landed on my foot. And he was really apologetic, and he was like, "I'm really sorry. Didn't worry about it. I barely noticed." Jack McMillan then puts it wide. So, next penalty, Rico Diak's walking up, and I was like, "Sorry, wee man, going to just stand on my foot, please. Just need to maintain that." That worked really well. Going to just do that again. And he did. So I think me and him get a little bit of credit for that. And if you're listening and we're in Perth or Dingwall and there's a penalty shootout, I will be coming to find you somewhere. So just look out for that.
Just very quickly, can I just say, I try not to do this normally, but I'm going to actually call out somebody specific. So a mate of mine, Chris Ward, and his dad left after extra time because they couldn't face the penalties. Like, that is the least sensible thing I have ever heard in my life. So I really hope he's listening to this. What were you thinking? Like, oh my God, who does that?
I can kind of understand it though. It does get to a certain point. It's like, I'm not fitted out for this. I can't cope with this.
I know, it's just like at school. Some people, when you get injections at school, and some people don't look. And I never understand that. I want to know what's happening. I want to actually see the penalties. I never get that kind of thing of hiding behind the sofa or not watching. I want to actually see it happening in real time.
Yeah, but just not with the sound on. You're all right with the mute.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, that's fine. I had the sound on for this because it was Lewis Vaughan. If it had been Brian Graham for the decisive penalty, or Banzo or Fitzy Baby or one of these Partick heroes, I would have had it on mute. But no, it was Vaughan, it was on, and it was brilliant, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think that's a point, though. It did kind of surprise me he wasn't their fifth. I mean, whether or not it should be a teenager is by the by. I always think the fifth penalty taker is your... like if Wraith Rovers was a movie, then Lewis Vaughan is the main actor. Like, he's the lead story. He goes on loan, he relegates us, he comes back, he has 4 injuries, he does all of that. Do you know what I mean? He is the man that everything is based around. For Partick, that's Brian Graham. And surely he's fifth penalty taker.
There is a school of thought, though, that says that if you have them last and you miss the ones before, you don't get to the fifth penalty taker. It can happen.
Yeah,
so there is that school of thought that says you want your best takers in the first 3 positions. And there are other sports where they have shootouts that we're not allowed to mention because John might get angry, where there is that logic comes into it a lot as well.
Yeah, it's true.
I think also the fact that Scott Brown... Sorry. I think also Scott Brown missing that first one actually might have moved the Partick order. I don't know if Brian Graham went, we're winning this before the fifth one, so I'm moving myself to third. I might be completely wrong, and they did go with that was their order, but I just think the fact that they were 2-0 up after 2 kicks, or they were 2-1 up, but they could go 3-1 up with the third one. I don't know if he's moved himself at fifth to do that. I might be wrong, but...
Are they allowed to do that? Do they not have to set the 5 with the referee from the outset?
Yeah,
I don't know how it works.
I'm not sure.
It's funny. It's not funny at all. The psychology of a penalty shootout, because when Stanley scores and then Brown misses, it's like, this is the most uphill task any football team has ever faced. Just feels so, like, winning that game feels so far away, like such an impossible task.
Totally.
And I don't know if it's just because...
Oh, sorry, carry on.
I don't know if it's because for like a brief moment they're 2-0 up, even though we've still got like a penalty in hand or whatever it is, but just
whatever it is, it's not a lottery. I hate that. It's not a lottery.
No.
I'm sorry, they're professional footballers. It's not a lottery.
Penalty kicks are easy to win in the lottery.
It's not a lottery. Yeah, totally. Do you remember they brought in the ABBA thing though? The ABBA. Yeah. So like you weren't always the first penalty taker. You were if you were first, then you were second, and then you were second, and then first, kind of thing, and it bounced around. But it's a bizarre way to finish. Like for Partick Thistle, like for us last night, had it been, imagine if it was Scott Brown that had missed the penalty that stopped us going up. Like how cruel that would have been. But for Partick Thistle to go that entire season and do everything that they did, and it comes down to penalties, I always think it's just a bizarre way to decide a promotion and relegation. Like,
rock, paper, scissors, that's what we want.
It's kind of the least bad option, though, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, probably.
Imagine if we'd got a replay. Dear me.
I have to say, like, as the Rovers, generally have a pretty good record in penalty, with the exception of Brechin. Generally speaking, we've had a pretty good history with shootouts. So,
we've done all right.
As long as we don't have to play Connor Brennan, we seem to do all right. Say that again, Scott.
Are Thistle turning in England and just losing penalty shootouts all the time?
That would be good. That would be quite good, to be fair.
I mean, last year
I quite like Thistle, but it's funnier if they keep losing on penalties. That's a...
We were actually chatting about the kind of format of the playoffs and stuff, and there's that thing about like fourth place and how they've got to play so many more games to get there and stuff. And I read something online, and I forget who it was, some person on Twitter, and I'm going to just completely steal their point, but he was like, if you finish fourth in a league of 10, you're basically mid-table. You should have to jump through a load of hoops in order to get promoted, actually. And I think that's really good. But I was chatting to my mates about it, and I was like, do you know, like we've talked before about no points for 0-0 to really encourage attacking football. I think if there's a 10-point gap, there shouldn't be a playoff. Sorry,
Well,
you're
seriously,
10
that
points
happens in
behind
Italy.
them. You're not getting in.
They
Does
do
it?
that in Italy. Serie B. So it's 2 up automatically, and then the third pot place, if you're 10, 14, it's whatever, it's 10 points or more ahead of the fourth place team, there's no playoffs, that's it. The top 3 automatically go up.
Love that.
Yeah,
I do as
love it.
well. Parma benefited from it, so I love it.
Love that. It's just like, I mean, at the end of the day, I've said it already, but we were 14 points ahead of them. Like,
Yeah.
the league table doesn't lie, but playoff games do.
Right, I think we have gone on for a very long time. Just kind of quickly, by way of summary, I'm going to come around each one of you and give me a man of the match on the night, and just any final thoughts that you want to give me on that game, please. And Leslie, we'll start with you.
Man of the match for me has to be the captain, Scott Brown, for the clearances, for the leadership, for stepping into defence, everything he did. Scott Brown has to be the man of the match. And I'm going to use my airtime just to put out 2 points. So after the game last night, I had to go down and have a wee walk on the beach. I actually had to go for a wee paddle in Open Bay to calm down. And we're close enough now to the final. I'm going to put this out here, and I'll put this on record so I can be held to it. If we get through the next 2 legs and we win promotion to the Premier, I am going to cycle from my house in Oban to wherever we are playing on the first day when we're in the Premier League. Whether it's Pittodrie, whether it's Starks Park, whether it's Killy, wherever it is, I'm going to be on my bike from my house in my Rover's top to get there. Other thing as well, I know we've got global listeners. I'm away next week to work for Taiwan. I don't say that to brag or carp. I'm quite lucky to do stuff like that, but I'm going to miss the playoffs. If we have any listeners in Taipei, please get in touch. I would love to have somebody to watch the game with. So that's 2 things from me. Hopefully, I'm going to need to start getting training and be on my bike for the first game of next season. Fingers crossed.
That would be incredible.
The
if there's
inaugural
somebody...
meeting of the Taipei Rover Supporters Club. So actually, we're not accepting new members at the moment. Sorry, we're full. Carol, a man of the match and a final thought, please.
A man of the match is Scott Brown. I think it just was amazing, just absolutely amazing. And listening to his post-match interview, 2 years ago he was at Peterhead, and look at where he is. He's 2 games away from the best football that he can play, and I think that he's got so much more to give, and he's just loving it, and he's been fantastic as a captain, and he's going to do amazing things. And no, I am not going to follow up on Leslie. I am not cycling from Barcelona to the first game of the season. That might kill me slowly but surely. I have said if we get to a big cup final, I will cycle. So that gives me a little bit more time to train. And give Louis Vaughan the crown to the kingdom. Forget the keys to the kingdom. He is the king of Fife. Make him a crown. Give him a funny glove and a staff thing that they do for coronations. I don't know what it is. But give him everything. Because, yeah, last night, I've had a roller coaster of a week. I've had a playoff with my local team in Barcelona, San Andreu, who won 2-0. They've got another game tomorrow. I've had a really ill cat back and forward from an emergency vet. Last night, after Vaughan's penalty, I was in tears. Just sheer joy. And I will live every moment of that again.
Yeah, you were not the only one. There was a good few folk. The emotion, getting to them in the South Stand last night as well. Scott, man of the match and a summary, please.
I'd just give it to the whole team. Just the fact that every one of them just...
Come on, pick someone.
I wouldn't argue against...
That's like Robbie. I would give it to Ian Murray.
If it was to go to one or the other, it would probably be Kev or Scott Brown, because the 2 of them last night, between them, must have had about 6 clearances off the line. And I mean, it was just incredible. Brownie just throwing everything in front of the ball, just making sure that it's just not even going to have the chance of going in the net. And Kev pulling off, yeah, it's just, I think we talked about Harry Milne one at the end. He's no right to even see that because it's went through about 5 rucky bodies to get to it. And I'm just went, well, fair play to even tip that round the post. So no, I think it would be Kev or Bruni, and just, yeah, overall, I mean, last night, yeah, I barely could even watch the penalties, but it was unbelievable, and it's so fitting because this season has been incredible from start to finish. For that mental comeback late on at Firhill right till now, it's just been such a great roller coaster to be on, and I'm not finished with it yet, and I just want it to be completed. Whether it's McDermott Park or Dingwall, I don't care. There's just too many people within the club that I want it to happen for, and I just hope that it happens.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm unsurprisingly, I'm also going to go for Scott Brown as the man of the match, even if he didn't think so. I did, and I guess it's leading by example. Does it in the midfield, does it in the defence. He's everywhere all the time. Just a phenomenal captain, and as you said, Blair, that's who you want. That's what you want your captain to be. And to echo what you've said there, Scott, I just think 2 games to go, and not only is it there's nothing to fear, there is, it's well beyond that. This is there for the Rovers to just go and take their game to exactly, whether it's Ross County, whether it's St Johnstone. At this point, I do not care. I don't think either of them are going to be even remotely comfortable with the prospect of playing the Rovers. That's just going to be, that's a nightmare scenario for them, really. You don't want to have to go and play this Rover side when their tails are up. I think the way that Ian Murray was talking after the game, it feels almost like they kind of viewed this playoff semi-final as I can't quite think of the right word, not like an obligation, but almost like this is the one they should have won, almost. It's like you finish second, you should beat whoever finished third and fourth. And then the final is your reward. It's your right now. This is what you actually almost earned. You had to reconfirm it, but you earned a shot at the Premiership by beating a Premiership side. And sorry to infringe on a copyright, but I am buzzing to get into this on Thursday and just go and watch this Rover side 2 more times this season and see what they can do. Blair, final word to you, please, mate. Surprise us with your man of the match, and then anything else you would like to add.
So I'd pick Ewan Murray. No, I wouldn't. It was Scott Brown. 100%. But everything that you've already said, and everything I've already said as well, he was imperious last night. I just very quickly, the only thing with the playoff final, SFA and their apparent disregard for supporters. Why is it Thursday night and Sunday? It just baffles me. Do you know what I mean? It's one of the biggest games that you're going to have in the kind of season is your playoff final, and it's a Sunday, and we could potentially be in Dingwall for it. Do you know what I mean? So potentially we go up to Dingwall, we win promotion, and then you've got 3.5 hours to get home, and then actually I've got work the next day anyway. So you can't even really enjoy and celebrate the kind of thing the way that you would want to. That's the big disappointment for me. But this team's been great this year. We've been so lucky starting a podcast this season, I think. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a reason that Partick Thistles is called, draw, lose or draw. Whereas, do you know what I mean? We've got this great feeling about the place, and the club genuinely feels like it's moving in the right direction. There's loads of positives, and there's still, we've said it a few times, they talk about how they're barely out of first gear. We're kind of, it feels like we're kind of going somewhere. And this week, or kind of 10 days or 8 days, is going to be massive for this club. And we have nothing to fear. Absolutely nothing to fear. I think you're right, Duncan, in either of them. But especially St Johnstone. I really hope it's them. I really do.
Yeah, it's I think that will do us for this episode of the Oh Yes 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 podcast. We're just just according to the timer that I've got for the recording, we're at 93 minutes and 14 seconds, which is Brian Graham time. Just to get that in once more. So collectively, I think we will boot this ball over the bar and leave it there. So we will be back later in the week at some point for a full preview. Obviously tomorrow we will find out whether that will be a preview of a game against St Johnstone or against Ross County. But tickets are already on sale for that one for Thursday night. Absolutely guaranteed the South Stand's going to sell out again. So if you want to be in there, I would suggest you get involved sooner rather than later. I think they're on sale season ticket holders only today. I'm guessing probably tomorrow it must go on general sale. Listen, you can work that out for yourselves. But as I say, we will be back later in the week. Thank you for listening again, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.